Alright guys, sorry about that. We should be back up and running now. There's a new link that was emailed out to everyone, so if you get that link, just check your emails. It should be there. And you can hop right back in. Apologies for that. So, we'll get started here in just a minute. We're going to let a few of you guys come back into the session and just kind of get started back up where we were as we left off. That way we know something hasn't happened and everyone's still here and kind of hearing what we're going on and what we're doing. So if you get this, just check your emails and you'll be able to watch that link and jump right back in. Apologies for that. We have some technical difficulties sometimes, and other times it's totally okay. So welcome to the world of technology, I guess. So I see a couple of you coming back in, which is good. If you get the link, just check your email and maybe hit refresh in the inbox and you should see that. It should be there, ready to go. So kind of going to where we left off here, we were talking about adding some keys and adding keys here. So I drug in the piano track and I kind of soloed everything out and I just listened to the keys. So I'm going to go back here and actually listen to these keys and see what they sound like from the beginning. And we all kind of know this hook part in Cornerstone.
Intro, 2, 3, 4.
Cool. So we know that part of Cornerstone, and it goes through the intro there. How I got this track here is basically going up to Create, and then you can insert a new MIDI track. And it will drop a blank track here. And then in Ableton, you can open up this window browser here on the side, and it will give you a list of these categories. So I clicked on Sounds, and all these different sounds are in Ableton Live. Now, how this works is I'm not actually recording a live grand piano. Like I don't have a live grand piano here. I just have my little USB keyboard that I'm using, and I have it connected USB to my computer, and I know it's reading because when I plug it in and I created this piano track, I record enabled it by arming it here, and then when I click or when I actually hold down a key on the piano on the keyboard, it is lighting up. So that tells me that the MIDI data is getting to Ableton, which is good, which is what I want. And you say, well, no sound's coming out, what's happening? And the reason the sound is not coming out is because I have to actually assign a sound to this MIDI track. I have to tell Ableton this is the sound that I want this track to play when I'm controlling it using the piano. So in Ableton, I was saying there are 3 tiers: Ableton Live Intro, Standard, and Suite. I have Suite. It's the highest one, and it gives you the most preset sounds that come along with Ableton. You have more sounds to choose from than you do in Standard and Suite, and you can actually get those from Ableton.com. You can download new packs. It'll have keys and pads and drums and all kinds of synthesized sounds. And we're going to go over a few things at the end of the webinar. I'll show you some resources and stuff where you guys can look and get some really cool things. So I'm going to go down here to piano and keys. And I want to click this little down arrow, and all these little sounds, little sounds here are patches or preset sounds that are in this category of piano and keys. So I can choose any one of these and drag it and drop it right into this keys track, and I'll be able to get that sound. So we wanted a piano. So I'm going to go down here to, where is it at? Grand piano. Here we go. Grand piano. And you can hear it when I click on it. It gives you a sample pane right here to actually listen to the sound of what you're listening to. So if you choose different ones of these, you can hear. So this glass piano might have been good back in like 1987, but we're going to use the grand piano because it's kind of a timeless instrument here. So I'm going to drag and drop it here, and now when I drag and drop that, you can see all the effects that are tied in to create this sound. These are all the different things that they used to create this specific grand piano sound when they recorded it. So now I'm not going to touch anything. I'm just going to like go over to my piano keyboard that's tied into my computer and press down one of the keys. So now instead of those dots that we were seeing earlier, I'm actually seeing volume. I have a little sustain pedal. My keyboard, my USB keyboard, actually has a slot in the back for a sustain pedal. It's a 1/4-inch cable. It just goes right in the back, and then I put the sustain pedal on the floor just like you would have on a piano. And when I press and hold the sustain pedal, it'll actually sustain those notes out. So instead of instead of just playing the notes here, you know, I can't really sustain anything. Now the pedal held down, it kind of creates cool. So we have something there that's kind of good, and we all know the little hook part of I think of Cornerstone here. Yeah. So it sounds better if I didn't have that sustain pedal. Not kind of what we're going for, but you might want to invest in one of those as well, a little sustain pedal to create a little bit of flow to your keys part. Now I'll tell you a trick. I'm not a piano player by any means. I took a few lessons growing up, but I didn't really develop that talent. I'm a guitarist at heart, so between those two things, I have to really, really listen to the piano track if I'm going to match it exactly. So we're going to do a couple things first to actually get the tone. That was a pretty good solid piano tone that we had, but I'm going to do a couple of things. We're going to leave the brightness about the same. The hardness, I'm going to actually increase it a little bit to about 75. Tone more on the treble side, bring up some of those highs around 75 as well. And then the reverb. So right now, so if I hit this really hard and just let it go, you can kind of hear a little bit of reverb. If I took it all the way out, there's nothing. If I put a little bit back in, you can hear it echo a little bit. I'm going to give it a little more. So we're going to really jack this up because reverb is such a huge tool. Cool. And so also in this whole category here, when you're developing these, you can also go to audio effects right here. And there's a list of these effects that you can put on here. There's this even has its own reverb. So if I wanted even more than just this parameter of reverb, I could throw another reverb plug-in on there and actually control it. There's a little bit of delays. I think we're going to try to put a delay on here. I don't want to get too fancy. If you open up the filter delay and just go to simple filter 1, I'm going to drag it right at the end of the audio effect chain here. And this chain goes from left to right. So everything from the left goes into the next thing on the right, goes into the next thing, goes into the next thing, and then finally goes into the filter. That's the path of this effect chain here. So now I have this little thing here, like what is all this? Oh man, it looks complicated. So if I hit the sound of the key, now it's going to give me some cool delay. Now I don't want that much. So it's actually synced to the BPM, which we know is 72. And if I let this go, it's going to do based on time. So I can like really adjust this how specific or whatever I want it to be in milliseconds. Or I can go super fast. You know, I'm going to sync it though. And this is a whole note. So this is every, I think it's like eighth notes. Quarter notes. Oh, this is sixteenths. Yeah, so it's sixteenths here, eighths here. This is like a triplet, either triplet or like dotted notes. And if you click on 4, this is your quarter note. So when you're using this now with a little bit of reverb and delay, it's a lot of echo actually, so we'll cut that down. So too much, right? There's way too much delay. So here, I'm going to cut the actual volume of that down. Maybe cut it down some more, and then bring back the actual feedback of it giving me delay. So let's pull that down a little bit. Pull it even more. Perfect. I don't want too much. If you have too much delay, sometimes it can really cut through and like mess everything up. That's probably good here. Just give it a nice little clean edge. Cool, so that's really good. I can give it a little more if I want. Feedback is the number of times that you're going to hear that repeat. So you're setting up the feedback. If it's a high percentage of feedback, then the delay times the repeating of the delay is going to be louder and louder until it eventually falls out. So, and the volume is the overall effect of me hearing that delay. So if I turn this up a little bit, cool, so that's good. Cool. Told you I'm not a keys player, messed up several times, but that is kind of developing our tone. So now that we have this sound, I'm going to hit the up octave on my keyboard here. And I know that when we listened to this first part, it was a very high octave. Let's listen to it again.
3, 4.
Cool. So it was the same, but it was super high. And I don't actually have that octave. So what you can do is, the great thing about MIDI is that you can really change it and edit it to according to what you need. So I'm going to show you a couple tricks. Let's go up here, File, and we're going to go to Edit and make sure we have Record Quantization onto our 16th note quantization. What this does is that when we're recording, it's going to snap every little piece of MIDI data to the nearest 16th note and be right in time. Alright, and also I'm going to turn on this overdub here so that I can actually hear our overdub things and not have it delete and record over the instrument or the notes that I previously played. So let's go scroll in here. We're on the intro. Gonna watch this.
Intro. 2, 3, 4.
Cool. If you're not a piano player like me, so what you can do is record different parts of the piano at the same time. So let's, this is already armed. I'm going to hit record, and it's my cursor set here. So I'm just going to record the bass notes first. Ready?
Intro. 2, 3, 4. Verse. 2, 3, 4.
Cool. Now that that's there, let's cut off the audio from the actual track and listen to what we recorded. So I'm going to turn off the piano and just keep this on.
4.
Cool, so that sounds good. It recorded everything just I want, has the reverb, has the delay. And what I can do now is go back to the exact same spot and hit record again, and it's not going to delete the bass octave notes. It's going to allow me to record alongside of them. So I'm going to go up in my keyboard a couple octaves so I can get that high sound. And I'm going to hit record again, and we're going to try to mimic that sound of the high keys, and we're going to not delete over the previous keys that we did. So let's try that.
Intro. 2, 3, 4.
Cool, so I messed up. I had the sustain pedal already held down before I started. I'm going to redo that. And if you ever mess up, you can just go to edit and undo whatever the last recording thing you did, or hit Control or Command Z, and that'll erase those MIDI notes. So let's try it again from the same spot.
Intro. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4.
I just added a little couple of notes here, nothing big. So if you ever have trouble with the sustain pedal being held down too, it's actually the sustain pedal is actually sending a note. I'm pressing the sustain pedal now, and watch this little button. It's actually assigning a note, the down and the up, the down and the up of the sustain. So that is how we know that it's getting pressed. So I can actually just record this and not pressing any keys and just record the sustain pedal again
Intro.
to get
2,
the right
3, 4.
formats.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
Cool, that's probably enough. So I recorded the new sound, and then when I play that back, cool, it gives me a nice long notes. So if you notice here, we messed up at the beginning, and this MIDI data comes in too fast or too slow. So what we need to do is double click on this MIDI clip, and we can bring this up a little bit, zoom in, and you can actually see all the little MIDI notes in here. Now you can see where all these are lined up, but this one is not. It happens a little bit too fast. We can scroll up here and actually preview it. So it happens too fast. I'm going to click and drag and scroll over these, and then using my little cursor keys on my computer keyboard, I'm just going to tap these over until I know it lines up with this note and matches evenly with the spaces. And now let's see what happens. It's fixed. This is the great thing about MIDI, is that I can drag this anywhere I want. You know, I can totally manipulate the data and then assign different sounds. This is, if I said, well, I want this to be strings instead of a key sound, a piano sound, I can go back over here and not only edit the position and timing of the notes, but I can also come up here and change the sound. So here is the sound. I can like make this an organ sound instead of the keys if I want. So I'm going to drag the organ, and instead of the keys, now we have an organ. So let's see what this sounds like. So maybe not as cool. Here's that glass piano from the 80s that I was talking about. Again, low octaves are not really good there. So again, you can do all types of things. Here's a harpsichord. I mean, you could put strings, trumpets. Kind of a cool little sound. So we're just going to leave this grand piano here. And once I have the grand piano, again, you'll have to reset these where you had them. That's the only thing. And so if you need some parameters changed, just remember that. But that's keys. Now let's move on to, for sake of time, you can finish listening to the next part and then fill in the keys. But don't feel like you have to play all four hands at the same, or all four parts at the same time of the piano using both hands. Go through and record the bass parts first, then what you can hear, record the melodies, and then go back through and add your harmonies. And you can do that without deleting any of the data. It might take some time, but your piano track will sound like really, really particular, and nobody's going to know. It's going to sound really nice. So let's add another MIDI track here. I'm just going to hit Shift Command T, and it's going to add a new track here. And let's call this one like pads. Cool. So pads are like a certain sustained sound, and I know that they're kind of elongated, and it just kind of adds a lot of foundation to your tracks. So let's go back here to piano and pad in their sounds category, and let's try to choose a pad sound. Let's do this little snow pad. So the snow pad, you can click on all kinds of different ones. Here's a celestial pad. This one's pretty cool. So let's add this celestial pad sound to this MIDI track by dragging and dropping, and it gives us our pad. Now, I'm going to deselect this piano to solo and solo off the pads now. So I'm doing this, by the way, by holding down the Command or Control key while I'm clicking on these to select multiple at a time. Because if not, you'll just click one and it only solos that channel. So you'll need to solo the ones that you want to have on so you can hear those using the Control or the Command key. So it's armed. We're ready to go. And we need to find out, before we do this, what kind of octave and what sound we want. So I'm going to hold down the C octaves, the low ones. And this gives me just a nice pad sound. And as long as I have these keys held down with my left hand, it's going to hold these notes out. Cool? So what we need to do, and if I let go, it'll fade them out. And this, the way this is set up here, knows to fade out the sound. With these different oscillators that are on here, it knows to fade out the sound instead of just cutting it off abruptly. And so let's try this from the very beginning. Maybe you want a lower octave. I don't know how low you want to go. Probably it's just that. So we're going to record. And I'm going to go ahead and hold this down.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
I put the other octave in there.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
Cool. So this is what it's going to sound like. Again, playing it back from the beginning. Goes right in and plays exactly what I had recorded.
Intro.
Now, usually with pads, you want to let them kind of fade in from nothing. So in order to fade those in, you can set a fade time. By down here, there's a little parameter. There's we call these macros, macro controls. And usually these macro controls, again, if I went up here to keys or MIDI, these macro controls can be mapped to specific parameters inside of that preset sound. So like if I wanted to change the volume, when I could map this volume to a certain macro here and assign it there and then change it without having to change it here. And I can assign these to a MIDI controller, which is my USB keyboard, my piano, and say like if I had a dial on my piano that scrolled up and down, I could assign it to volume. So when I turn up the volume on my keyboard, it will turn it here. This is kind of extra stuff that you may not really need to use, but it's there, and it kind of explains what these even are. So we're going to increase the attack. If the attack is all the way off, if I hit a key, it comes right in. It doesn't fade in. It comes right in. So if I up this attack a little bit and hit the same key, it's not as much. It kind of fades in. Kind of cool, right? Now, if I adjust the parameter here, it's going to adjust it in the MIDI note here. It's not, again, this is not an audio recording. This is just a MIDI data that's being transferred through this sound. So if I start it, doesn't have as much of a
Intro.
punch, but you can do even more than that if you wanted by keeping this off. And if you go here to the pad section, there are some different types of choices that you can have from these automation panes. You can actually control, the first one, it says Celestial Pad. And these are the list of different things inside of this sound that you can control, but I'm going to go down here to the mixer and select mixer. And then right now it's set to the speaker either being on or off, also known as, hey, this is sounding, it's making a sound, or it's not making a sound. I'm going to go to track volume, and now this little line will let me automate the sound here. So I'm going to scrub in, zoom in a little bit so you can see. Right now this is at 0, meaning it's not 0 sound, you can't hear it. It means that it's at the bass sound, the standard noise level. So here's where the track really comes in on this verse 2, 3, or intro 2, 3, 4, and then it comes in on number 9, beat 9. So I'm going to put a point right here. And you can see it's at 0 decibels. And then I'm going to put another one here and hold it and drag it down to where it says infinite. You can't hear anything. And I'm going to just bring this right over, probably to about right after the actual note begins. So now watch what happens if I play this from the beginning.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
So right there's where it hit. You can even drag this back even more if you wanted to. You know, back over here and kind of have a very long fade in if you wanted to. So let's try it again. Cut the click off.
Intro 2, 3, 4.
Cool. I don't really like the sound of that high note, so I'm just going to click on it here. I clicked on the MIDI clip itself by double-clicking on it, and then I clicked the top note, and then I'm just going to hit delete, and it gets rid of the note altogether because I want that low sustained sound. Let's cut the piano back on.
Intro 2, 3, 4. Verse 2, 3, 4.
My hope is built on nothing less. Cool, right? So there is no limit as to the number of sounds you can really develop with this thing, and that's just a couple of different tweaks. And these, again, there's a way to create these pads from scratch. You can go to this little instrument tab here in categories and choose this operator, and bring operator down into a new track itself, and it's just going to give you a basic sound. So I'm going to cut the solo on for this one, and let's say we want to do like pads 2. Now this sound is going to play just a basic, sounds like a very basic computer sound. So what I can do is, using these little effects, audio effects, I can bring a reverb here on it. So you hear it kind of hear the reverb. I can the decay time of this reverb, how long this takes to actually fade out, I can up it to 4. It was at like 1 second. Now it's going to take almost 4 seconds for this to fade out. Cool, right? So you can cut those things off. You can actually change the frequency of these sounds, control it down, and it should change the tone of the note. Makes it quieter, or maybe makes it louder, depending on what you have. Can actually change it from being a very like harsh sound, like distorted, almost to a very clean, warm sound. And you know, you can change. This is the only channel that's on here, and so this attack is this gets really complicated, but I don't recommend doing this right away. But you can increase the attack so that it fades in instead of bam. It's just kind of fades into the sound. So when you're upping those, you can really, how many seconds it takes to fade into the full sound. And that's just using a simple thing. There's also, in the same instrument rack, there's what we call a sampler. You can drag the sampler into a new window pane and call this like pads 3. You know, you can really do how many you want. This is another way. I'm going to delete this pads 2. You can sample sounds using a microphone or something and actually capture the audio. This is what people do in like cinemation, like if they're doing a movie that you see on the screen, or like some type of music video, or even video games. They'll actually go out with a microphone out in the world, and I can't remember what they call them, but it's like sampling live audio out in the real world. So, you know, cars honking, or you know, wind, or trees, or you know, animals. They capture these sounds and then they come back and you know, change them here and edit them and add different effects, and that's what we hear. So that's another way you could do that, and there's probably some instructional videos on YouTube that you could look up on how to use operator and sampler inside of Ableton to create these sounds, because those get really technical, but I did want to show them to you so that you had all the options and knew that you could do those things. We don't have much time left. I know there was a little bit of a cutout here, so we're going to extend this a little bit for you. I know that we wanted to get into synths as well, so I'm going to create a new MIDI track, call it synth. And again, color this orange because that's what we always do. Solo this out. I'm going to exit out of my, or unsolo my piano and pads. Let's collapse those as well. And we're going to go back to sounds, and you can do, here they have one for synth keys. So you can do like synth keys. So here's a cool one, Canadian boards. I'm going to put this in here. So now when I hit my key, it's kind of what we call arpeggiated. It's having a pulsating effect to this sound. Cool. So maybe let's do it a little higher. Cool. So let's add that in right at the verse. Cool. So let's do that. See what this sounds like.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
On nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness, I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name.
Verse 2, 3, 4.
Now, I was a little bit late, but again, because we have quantization, sorry, let me stop the recording. Because we have quantization turned on, it'll snap these to the nearest 16th. Got our click track back on here. And if it's not, you can actually go in here and edit when the notes are, you know, and re-record them, manipulate them. So I'm going to cut this piano, the actual recorded piano, back on. So let's go back to the verse.
Verse 3, 4.
You kind of hear what the synth sounds like inside of that. Kind of cool, right? So again, that's just actually using already one of the preset sounds. We've used synth, we've used pads, we've used piano, and you can drag all kinds of different things in here. And these are already in your sound library. If they're not, you can look those up. And that's how you add and record piano, pads, synthesizers, and different sounds. Now, in the time we have left, I did want to show you a couple things. Ableton is great. It's great if you want to record, if you want to play live music with it as well and do tracking in your church or worship setting. But one of the best things about Ableton is that, just like any other DAW, it can accept third-party plugins that are used inside of it to create different sounds. I'm going to show you a few of those. So maybe get your notepad ready or something. You can write these down and visit them later to kind of bring them into Ableton. So we're going to go over to the window. Now, before we do that, let me just show you how to export. If you're done with these and you've recorded from start to finish and you're ending here and all these tracks are done, you can delete all of these out because you didn't record them. You know, these are brought in so you could copy them. You know, kind of record alongside of them and see and try to match the tone. So let's say all these are your tracks. They're from start to finish. You're done. You've mixed them and the sound is really good. You can come up here to File and go to Export Audio Video and make sure your actual tracks are all named and they're all turned on. They're all yellow. And you can go down here to all individual tracks, and then it should be wave, 44.1, 16 is fine, and then no dithering is great. And then hit Export, and then it'll bring up where you want to save it, and you can actually rename this like How Great Is, or no, what is this? I'm thinking How Great Is Our God, another Chris Tomlin song, Cornerstone. And then put the time signature, which is 72, and then put the key, which was C, and then leave a blank or whatever. You can name it whatever you want, and then it'll name each one of these pad, piano, synth, and then it'll bring it up in that downloads folder. You'll see it right here as WAV files, and you'll be able to use those whenever, and that's how you do that. So that's how you export and record pads, keys, synths. It's really nice. And so over here, I'm going to jump over to Safari, the web browser here, and we're going to look at a couple of these before we go. So the first one, obviously, if you go to the Mac App Store, you can actually go to the App Store on your desktop and look at. This is only for, I believe, this is only for if you have a MacBook, not a PC. You can run MainStage. MainStage is a program that is basically how to play live sounds on a stage. Kind of what we just did by importing those piano sounds and synthesizers and pads. It has a ton of features. It's only $30 too, and you can use this right inside and kind of manipulate different tones and get different sounds and use them within. And then as you record, then you can put them in Ableton and edit them and all kinds of things. So this is a really great piece of software, and a lot of people use this for keys, for pads, for synthesized sounds. This is a very popular program. Probably one of the top like 3 or 4 that people use for creating music. The next one we have over here is called Spectrasonics. It's the name of the company, and they have a piece of software called Omnisphere, which is here. And you can go to the products and see what they have. These are like videos, but you could go to products and then Omnisphere. And you can actually buy this. And it kind of works like a MainStage, where you're able to, the difference is with Omnisphere, it has a bunch of sounds and you're able to really edit even more, probably so, with Omnisphere than you are with MainStage. It has a bunch of patches and presets that are inside of it, and you can use to edit and create your own sounds and put these inside of Ableton or Logic or Reason, Pro Tools, whatever DAW you have, and use them to create really, really cool pads and keys and different kinds of sounds. The next one over here, I think this is the product window, so we'll close that. Oh, actually, I think that was another one I had to show you. Native Instruments. So Native Instruments, they sell hardware like keyboards and different kind of controllers, but they also sell software, and that you can buy and use, just like Omnisphere and all those things that you can use for creating keys and pads and synthesizers. This is some really great stuff. Some of this stuff is cheap, some of this stuff is very expensive, but you get what you pay for, and it's worth it in the long run, because you can spend a lot of time creating this stuff inside of Ableton. The next one, I use this a lot actually. So in the 70s and 80s, analog synthesizers, polyphonic and monophonic, were very popular, and it's kind of making a resurgence here in worship music. You actually can see analog synthesizers on stage at concerts and stuff, and people are using these to kind of create the sounds, and then they come out of the synthesizer and into their guitar pedal board. They're using guitar effects pedals along with these analog synthesizers to create really, really cool stuff. So this is an app. I think I got it on my iPad for like $10 from the App Store. Has over 500 presets, I think. And you can actually plug this into the Lightning port and plug it into your USB keyboard, and that'll go into your computer. Apple sells this little thing called a USB adapter to Lightning, I think it is called, and you can just plug that in right in there and use it right with your computer. So when you press a key on your keyboard, it'll actually activate these, and you can control all these parameters. They got a couple of YouTube videos on their channel as well on how, like, tutorials on how to use it. Some great sounds can come out of this, and really cool stuff. This next one, Valhalla, is a company that has different types of patches and plugins that you can download for like delays, reverbs, really nice and pretty sounds for pads and different things like that. They have all their products here. Pretty reasonable. I mean, this $50 one, you're going to get a bunch of different types of sounds inside. It's not just this one. They have a different, they may have like 200 or something. I don't know what you'll pay for, how many will be in that package, but there's different ones that I've used these before when I'm tracking, and it's just like awesome. And last but not least, SoundPark. SoundPark is the patch and plugin division of loopcommunity.com, and it's run and owned by loopcommunity.com. We have a great team of guys that are really controlling a lot of the sounds that are on SoundPark. So you come to soundpark.com, and you can actually search through different types of sounds, and if you like the sound, turn this down a little bit, it's kind of loud. So So that's cool. So we have different sounds. You can go through all these, and we're putting together. And look here, Omnisphere. That's the one I showed you earlier. Main Stage, another one I showed you earlier. So a lot of these are being used by software that we're previewing to know. So check out this, and you can add these to your cart. And when you put these in there, you have to have that piece of software in order to run this. So you have to have Omnisphere, or you have to have Main Stage in order to play those sounds back. But some of these you can get in Ableton and select the different pieces of software that you might have in order to control them, different sound types that you want to look for, add those to your cart, and you can check out and drag and drop them right into Ableton, just like we were doing before with the keys, pads, and piano. So guys, that's pretty much it. I would say that, I know this is a lot to go through. We'll patch this video up to anything with the delay that was there earlier. You won't see that. So head on over to those places that I showed you earlier and maybe look and browse into some of those things. There's a lot of YouTube training videos on the software, and you can kind of make these things your own and edit the MIDI data and really have a good broad view of all the resources there are for recording keys, piano, and pads. Really exciting stuff that people are doing nowadays with software, and they're making it easier and easier to use every day, and it sounds better and better. So I hope this video, this webinar was really good for you guys and informational. So if you have any questions, email us at support@loopcommunity.com, support@loopcommunity.com. Tune in next week, Monday at 3, same time, and we'll give you guys a link in the Eventbrite email that we'll send, and we're going to cover the drums. So thanks, guys, for tuning in so much. Hope you guys have a great day and a good week, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.